I'm Tracy. Welcome back to my channel. I do upcycling tutorials and I mainly get my clothes and fabrics and stuff from Goodwill. I've been selling online, eBay and Etsy for over 10 years. I've recently stopped and now I'm just having fun showing people what I've learned along the years. I gotta say, one of the most flattering comments I get from people, and I've gotten it a lot, is you inspire me to go to Goodwill and get some things and try some things. You know, what do you have to lose? You go to Goodwill. My jeans at Goodwill are $4. And if I mess up, you know, $4 is $4, but it's really not a lot and really not anything to fear. So today I'm going to be upcycling these jeans. I want to make them a wide leg and, you know, just bleach them and patch them and make them kind of edgy. I would say like a street style or boho, legging look sort of style. So let's get started. So I want my jeans to be shorter, a little bit cropped. So while I had these on, I stuck a straight pin at about my ankle. Yeah, right about my ankle. And then where I put the straight pin, I just measured and it was 4 inches up, and I just marked along both legs 4 inches up so that I can crop them. I put a little pin right here. These need to be perfectly lined up. And if I stick a pin there, it just sort of ensures that stays. And then I just cut across on both legs. Now what I want to do on both sides of the jeans is cut the sides open. And you see this seam right here on the outside of the jeans? I cut about ½ an inch behind that. Not on the front of the jeans, but on the back of the jeans. And the reason why I go ½ an inch is because when you get up to the top of the jeans, you usually, so you're coming up the seam ½ an inch. On this side you have a rivet, and so you don't want to cut on this side. And if you go too far on this side, you run into a belt loop. Usually the belt loops are even closer to the seam. These are pretty good. So I'll just go cut them open completely, about a ½ inch along that seam. Now the first thing I'm going to do after I cut open the pants is cut out fabric patches. And I laid them down. I cut out 4 and they're rectangles. Quick tip, these are from a blazer from a thrift store. And I love looking at blazers for patches and purses and things like that because they usually have fun patterns. They're quality sort of tapestry fabrics or corduroys. So if you want to get specific and know how big these patches are, I have a little cheat sheet. This one is 8 by 5. This one is 4 by 4. This one is 6.5 by 5. And this one is 4 by 5. And I pinned them down. Now I'm going to go to my machine and sew them on. I'll use the same color thread that the jeans were made in. And you can do a zigzag stitch if you want, but I'll just do a small stitch because these will fray on the end or the edges once I wash them, and you can't really see the cute zigzag anyway. After I sew the patches on the front, I turned it over and sewed a few on the back. And if you're interested, the size of this one is 5 by 4, this one is 2.5 by 5, and this is 3 by 3. Of course, you can make them any size you want, have as many or as few as you'd like. And I also, at this point, about 50% of the time, I cut off a pocket. It just gives extra fraying here when you wash it. And then I like the dark patch look right there. Just adds a little interest. Now what I want to do is I want to make some distressed holes that I will patch from behind with dark denim or maybe light denim. I'll figure it out as I go. But before I do that, before I start cutting the holes, I usually take a piece of chalk and I just kind of mark out where I want that hole to be. And I've done that here, here, and here. And I'm going to do a few on the back, but I'll show you the back when I'm done. I'll show you how to do it on the front. Okay, I'll show you what I do down here on the bottom of the leg since it's a little easier to show on the camera. I have a cutting board and I have a box cutters. This one's called a slice box cutter. It really doesn't matter. They all kind of work the same way. And what I do is put my cutting board underneath and then I just kind of go to town. You know, I want it to be messy, but I would say maybe 1/4 of an inch apart, these different slices. Some are closer, some are further, some are shorter, some are longer. And then sometimes, okay, so now we have it looking like this. But in order to see that patch that I'm going to use behind it, sometimes I cut out a few of these and make the holes a little bigger. Maybe this one. But I want to leave some of them. It gives it that kind of striped, frayed look. And so I'm just going to go around and do that to all the places I circled on my jeans with the chalk. Okay, now I have all my holes cut out. And what I'm doing now is I'm just taking a dark piece of denim from another pair of jeans and I want to patch this from underneath. So all I have to do is just make sure it's big enough to cover the holes. And then I turn it over, lay this patch dark side down. You want to see it through the hole. And I pin it on and I go to my machine and stitch it. Now this time I'm going to do a zigzag stitch because on the front side you will see the stitching and I just think a zigzag stitch is a lot cuter. Okay, so now what I need to do is add a side panel. We need to close this up and turn this into a wide leg pair of pants. The weight, I'm going to talk math, which isn't my strong suit, but I'm going to tell you how I got the measurements for my triangle, and then I'm going to show you how to make the pattern for it. The waist is fine for me. I like the fit of the waist. So I made my triangle at the top 1 inch across, which basically just gives me room for a seam allowance. I have 35 inches long, and I am going to add 1.5 inches because sometimes weird things happen when you sew and get shifted around. I want to make sure this isn't too short. So I add about 1 inch, 1.5 inches for safety. So I got 1 inch here, 36.5 inches here. Now I decided I want my pant leg to be about 1 foot across, which makes it 24 inches in circumference. So when I opened this up, this measured 14 inches, and I need to add 10 inches to get that 24 inches in circumference. So I added 10 inches and a little bit more for a seam allowance. So that's how I got the measurement for the bottom of my triangle, about 10.5 inches. 10 inches. So 1 inch, 36.5 by 10. Okay, so I drew out my pattern. I have a piece of wrapping paper, and The wrapping paper with the grids are definitely much better to use. I had to use a T-square to get my lines straight, but the grids just make life so much easier. And so I have 1 inch up here and 10 inches down here wide. This is my pattern right here. And so I folded this in half to get a nice straight line. And I went over it with a marker so you could see it better. This is half. And so since I want this 1 inch, I mark 1/2 inch on that side of the line and 1/2 inch on this side of the line. And I want it 5 inches down here, or 10 inches down here. So here's my center. I went 5 inches here and 5 inches here. I just marked it up here and then I connected it with a yardstick. And now I'm going to cut it out. Now I'm going to cut up some old jeans and just piece some strips together. I need 2 strips that are at least 36.5 inches long and 10 inches wide. I'll go 1 inch bigger just to be safe. And then I'll show you, that will be our side panel and what we'll trace our pattern on. But I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so I stitched 2 pieces of denim together to make sure it was big enough for the pattern that we made. And I stitched it wrong sides together because I want that fraying on the outside. And then I went to my ironing board and I just pressed that seam open. Now I'm ready to put my pattern on. I'll stick a few pins in it and trace around it. Now my pattern is traced on and I am just going to cut it out. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my machine and I'm going to take the front part of the jeans and the front part of this, well, the side of this triangle, and I'm going to stitch wrong sides together because I want the seam on the outside. I want all that extra fraying. And I am just going to start at the very top, about 1/4 inch or about 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now some of this is a little tricky to get through, and you're going to want to use a denim or a jeans needle on your machine. So basically you just sew that all the way down to the bottom, and I double stitch that, or you can even triple stitch. And then I'll show you what it looks like when I get that one side done. Okay, I have this front piece sewn on. I ended up going with a 1/4 inch seam allowance and double stitched it. I gave myself 1.5 inches just in case something happened while I was sewing. I'm going to have to cut about 1.5 inches off, so maybe you don't have to go quite, maybe go an extra 1/2 inch because this one worked out pretty well. But that will narrow my pant leg a little bit, but not that much. It's still going to be nice and wide. So now what I do, I have this triangle sewn on the front side of one leg. So now I need to sew it to the back. So I'm going to take the back piece, the other side of my triangle, and sew it down. And I'll double stitch that with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so here's what we have so far. They're cropped and wider at the leg, or at the bottom, and all the way up the leg a little bit wider, kind of like a dad jean or a boyfriend jean. Just one quick little thing, any seams that were cut down at the bottom, I do a little zigzag stitch over so they don't come apart. And now I'm just going to do a little bit more distressing, and I'll show you what I do. Now what I do here is take my box cutter again, And I am just gonna go over like the belt loop where it's double fabric there, along this pocket here. And I am just gonna make some cuts. So that it's distressed, and when you wash it, it'll be frayed and kind of carry the theme along into these other little details. So I'll go along, I'll do the other belt loops, I'll do this area here, probably a little bit there. I'll probably rough up the edges at the top of the jeans. And then the belt loops on the back, the top of the pocket here. I'll show you how to do the tops of the jeans. Okay, so now we're going to work on the top here a little bit, just distressing it. I put my cutting board back underneath. And all I'm going to do is just make a few cuts here and there. So it's kind of rough at the top and frayed a little bit. Okay, so now I'm going to give them a little bit of a bleach treatment to make them look extra time worn and vintagey. So I'm just going to take some bleach and fill up my bucket, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch or inch, something like that. Now I'm going to take just an old cut-up t-shirt and I'm going to dip it into the bucket and get the rag pretty saturated. And now I am just going to wipe over these jeans where they would naturally be sort of worn. I'm going to try to avoid the patches. If I get a little bit on there, it's okay, but I don't want to saturate them. Now these are 100% cotton jeans, and I purposely look for those because they bleach really fast and really well. Anything with like a spandex blend sometimes doesn't take to the bleach. So I'm going to turn this over and I'm going to do the front side. And I'm doing this fairly quick because they do bleach fairly quick. Now I want to go a little bit over that colored patch. Do a little bit here at the waistline. I'm going to turn it over and see what the back is doing. See, they're already starting to turn. I'm going to let that sit, and I'm going to tell you how long I waited. I'll let you know how long it took to process that. Okay, it's been less than 5 minutes and I'm happy with how they're looking. I'm going to run and put them in the washer and dryer, and then I will need to defray some of this. Some of this will have some extra long fraying. I'll cut some of that off and I'll show you it styled 2 different ways.